Hey there guys, it's Jesse, and today we're taking on Baleroc, one of the first bosses in the Firelands in World of Warcraft Cataclysm. This is a fight that can be pretty deceptive. On the surface it seems pretty easy, which is why when you first attempt the fight you'll either be completely overwhelmed or totally confused on why you just wiped. Trust and believe, this is a straight up mechanics fight, but once you understand what you need to be doing and when, this fight will be a breeze. As always, let's talk abilities first, then jump into a solid strat for victory. The first step to victory, and I hesitate to say this because I don't really want to tell you how to run your raid, but try your hardest to have roughly the same number of melee as you do ranged, and you're gonna need 2 tanks. It's just easier that way. Anyway, this boss has 3 main mechanics that you need to watch out for. The first is Blaze of Glory, where the boss's attacks periodically increase physical damage on a target by 20%, but also raise their health by 20%. So you really have to be careful with that, but unless you have some wild DPS, this really is only going to affect the 2 tanks. Also, every time he uses this, he gets a buff that increases his fire damage by 20%. And since we're sticking with the abilities that tanks have to deal with, the next are the Blades of Baleroc, Decimation Blade and Inferno Blade. Decimation Blade strikes only do shadow damage, but they equal 90% of the target's health. But no matter what, always do at least 250,000 damage. It can't be resisted, it can't be mitigated, nothing. However, the good thing is that it causes the time between his attacks to increase by 100%. Now the Inferno Blade only does fire damage, 1,000 to be exact, and lucky for you, he uses this way more than Decimation Blade. So now that you have an idea of what's going on as a tank, we'll come back to you later on how to deal with all that stuff. Baleroc's last ability is called Shards of Torment. He'll summon pink crystals, 2 in 25, 1 in 10, that continually channel shadow beams at the nearest player, doing 4,000 shadow damage, stacking once per second. In 25, he summons 1 in melee and 1 in ranged, hence the even number of players I mentioned before. If you get hit by the crystal and then you move out of range, you get a debuff called Tormented, that increases shadow damage taken by 250% and reduces your healing by 40%, which is not good for healers, which means you cannot take any of them healers, and it also prevents anyone in the raid from just tanking the crystals all the time. And of course, it gets worse. If no one is in range of one of the crystals, it will unleash a wave of torment that does 15,000 damage to all players and is essentially a wipe creator. Although, there is a nice benefit to all this chaos. The trick here is that if the healer casts heals on someone getting beamed by the shard, they get a buff called Vital Spark that increases with every 3 stacks of torment that is on their target. If they heal one of the tanks who has Blaze of Glory, they'll lose this buff and gain another called Vital Flame, which increases healing done on targets with Blaze of Glory by 5% per stack of Vital Spark, lasting 15 seconds. Once those 15 seconds are up, you revert to whatever stack you had of Vital Spark, allowing you to keep building it up, which in turn helps you keep up with the tank's increasing life. So hopefully by now you have some sort of picture of this fight forming in your head. But if not, let's talk strat. Before the fight starts, 5 to 6 melee and 5 to 6 ranged are selected to handle the shards. Remember, it can't be healers or tanks, so pretty much everyone else has to be involved. Most of the time you'll need 2 players per shard, but the debuff prevents you from going back again, so you'll need a few teams of 2. Each player in the group can usually take between 11 and 12 stacks before having to switch. As always, communication is the key. After about 2 players get 12 stacks, the shards will vanish, and a new one will spawn, and the next group goes in to handle it. As for the tanks, when the fight begins, the off-tank needs to grab aggro. You need 2 or 3 stacks of Blaze of Glory, whatever it takes to get above 250,000 life. Once you have it, switch with the main tank, and he'll hold aggro for almost the rest of the fight. Why just over 250k, you may ask? Well, because the off-tank is the one who is taking every single Decimation Blade, which only happens like 2 or 3 times during the fight, but it's super important that it's not the main tank taking it, and that you have the life to live through it. The main tank, of course, is taking all the Inferno Blades, and most of the melee damage from the boss, and all the Blaze of Glories as well. As for the healers, you simply need to make sure that you're healing the players hit by the Torment to get your buff, then unload on those tanks to give them the bonus heals they greatly need. Here's a tip though from one healer to another, because I know a lot of you are going to do this. Don't worry about getting your stack up, worry about healing the tank, because I know a lot of you are going to try to get really high numbers on your stacks, so you can do a lot of healing, so you can get really high on the meters, but trust me, that's an easy way to get your raid wiped, because the tank will get killed if you don't focus on them. But once you get that down, and all the other basic mechanics of this fight, it goes from overwhelming to a walk in the park. And as always, to show that if I can do it, so can you, here is our first Baleroc kill. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Thumbs up, subscribe, all that. And as always, to be continued.